We were slaves once, the daylight guardians of the vampires. I was born into servitude, yet I harbored them no ill will. Even took a vampire for my bride. It was forbidden, our union. Victor feared a blending of the species. Feared it so much he killed her. His own daughter, burnt alive for loving me. This is his war, Victor's. And he spent the last 600 years exterminating my species.
The war itself had become more perilous. The weapons had evolved. But our orders remained the same. Hunt them down and kill them off, one by one.
They are the immortal damned. One family lusting for power and wealth.
The chain has never been broken, not in 14 centuries.
Another driven by revenge.
Soon we'll defeat the vampires on their own ground.
Do you see this human?
He's attractive.
I can't be positive, but I'm beginning to think the Lycans are following him.
Hello, Michael.
Why are they after you?
Who are you people? You're in the middle of a war that's been raging for the better part of 1,000 years. A blood feud between vampires and Lycans. Werewolves.
Now, a decision must be made.
Why did you bring him here? You saved my life.
Between an oath sworn centuries ago
A human. He's not a human at all. He's a Lycan.
and the power
There can be no such union.
greater than vengeance.
You'll be lucky if I can convince the council to spare your life. Absolution will be yours the moment you kill Michael.
Underworld.
Welcome to Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. You may own your favorite movies digitally or on physical media. However, when they air on your favorite TV, cable, you love what you're watching so much you don't get off that couch. And that's the definition of what our show is all about. I'm Kevin, your co-host for this special Couch Potato Theater. We are proud to celebrate the 2003 vampire film, Underworld. I'd like to introduce my co-host, my fellow co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, and of course, you know, brother from another mother, co-host of several other shows, including Culture Clash, my brother, Kyle Wagner. How are you, sir?
Kate, yeah, I know. I had a great time meeting you in Tampa, too. Yeah, I'll tell him later. I promise before the end of the podcast, I will tell him. Kevin?
Dude, what are you doing? What are you doing, dude?
Kate, I'll call you back.
Dude, what are you doing about... What are you talking to my movie wife? We'll explain that later. But anyway, how you doing?
Yeah, I am doing well. I'm ready to talk some vampires, some werewolves, and your movie wife. Yeah,
we'll get into that. We'll get into that. But, so this is kind of a last minute addition to our 2020 October Vampire Month. We originally weren't going to do this, and then I was like, dude, we're doing a vampire month. We're not including Underworld. We got to do that. And you were like, well, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, we get so focused on the fact that it's vampires and werewolves in Underworld, and Underworld kind of has grown into this bigger thing than just vampires. It's kind of become this bigger thing. So I was focusing on, when we were talking about things, I was trying to focus on things that really put the focus on vampires. But then, of course, it's Selene. We have to talk to Selene.
Yeah, then I started focusing on Kate Beckinsale. So yeah, we'll
wait,
talk
no.
about that.
You were focusing on the picture you have of Kate Beckinsale.
Yes, I am. Thank you for joining us. But before we move on, let's tell the listeners where they can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Couch Potato Theater. First and foremost, there is a great way you can support us here at the Fandom Podcast Network and Couch Potato is please head on over to YouTube. Fandom Podcast Network is now on YouTube. Search Fandom Podcast Network and please subscribe. We would love some more subscribers. And all of our audio podcasts are also going to be up on YouTube. But we also have some special exclusive programming that is just for our YouTube channel. So make sure you check that out. As I was mentioning, our audio podcast master feed is at fpnet.podbean.com. Also on that Podbean app if you download it. And we're also happy to say that we are on all major podcast platforms, of course, like Apple Podcast, iTunes, and all those other big ones. So make sure that you find us there. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. We are also on Instagram and Twitter at Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me at Death Dealer 1. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No,
wrong account, dude. Wrong account. Come on.
Yeah, you can find me at AKyleW on Twitter and, of course, at AKyleFandom on Instagram.
Dude, you got to watch it, man. You got to keep our coven secret, okay?
It was a little too much blood last night. I'm not gonna lie.
It's all right. It's all right. Okay. There is another great way you can support us is we need reviews. We would love reviews. Please support the Fandom Podcast Network and Couch Potato Theater with reviews on your podcast platforms, of course, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. Just search Fandom Podcast Network and leave a rated review for Couch Potato Theater if you like what you're listening to. We love 5 stars, of course, but we love feedback in general. All right, welcome to Couch Potato Theater. We are talking about the 2003 cult hit, Underworld. I say that with question mark, Kyle, because when I was putting these notes together, is this a cult movie? Or is it too mainstream to be a cult movie? Because I'm not sure. I kind of feel like it teeters on both.
I think it started off more as a cult movie, and then as we got more and more sequels, it kind of turned into something else.
A franchise, basically, right?
Basically a franchise. I think the original one can still kind of fall under that cult movie status.
Does the franchise fall under cult status? Because it's. I mean, they did well, somewhat well in the box office, but they didn't like blow up, and they also don't have the best reviews. So, could the franchise be categorized as cult? Maybe.
You know what? As a franchise as a whole, I'm not going to call it a cult franchise. I think it's more of a guilty pleasure franchise.
Wow, that's a topic we'll have to talk about somewhere else.
We're pulling out from the old school culture clash there, man.
Well, let's get a little bit of plot description here for Underworld. Vampires and werewolves have been sworn enemies for hundreds of years. Now the conflict takes an unexpected and deadly new turn. Selene, a beautiful vampire warrior, uncovers a Lycan plot that could prove fatal for her entire race. She shadows a human, Michael, the Lycan's supposed target. Although she finds herself becoming attracted to him, he becomes infected with the lupine disease during a violent struggle with the Lycan overlord, Lucian, long thought to be dead. Selene uncovers her coven vampires leader Craven's betrayal and reveals why the Lycans want Michael. Vampires and Lycans actually have a common ancestor, and Michael is a direct descendant of that ancestor. As an heir to the legendary Corvinus bloodline, he carries a unique genetic strain that could allow him to become a vampire-werewolf hybrid. Now both sides must decide how to end the conflict to save their species. Now, Kyle, I decided to throw a couple opening topics before we kind of talk about the movie poster and all the other stuff here. Let's talk about Kate Beckinsale, my movie wife, okay? Let's just get it right out there in the open. You know, if you guys have been listening to us for a long time, I'm openly infatuated with Kate Beckinsale. Has always been for a very, very long time. I joke that she's my movie wife. And this was the movie that started it, Kyle. we've had fun with that for all this time that we've known each other, and we will continue to have fun with that as long as we know each other.
Because I have a Kate Beckinsale claim too. I mean, I actually have been. Well, Kate Beckinsale blew me away in Pearl Harbor.
This is true. She was very good in that, and Serendipity with John Cusack, really, really good. But
yeah, I mean, this is the one that puts her over the top. This gives her the title.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Now, Kyle, you did me a huge solid a while back when you got to meet her at a convention appearance.
So let's talk about this, because this is where I debate. Can she be your movie wife if you have never met her in person?
Yes.
But
no debate. Yes.
Yeah. I am the one who sweet talked her and who she made googly eyes at. And I got to sign a picture for you in a certain way.
Yes, you did. I am looking at it right now. And it says, and by the way, the picture is one of my favorite pictures of Kate Beckinsale. And it's not actually her from this film. She's in this like black bikini and she's holding up a Diet Coke. I don't know if she was promoting Diet Coke, but she just looks absolutely gorgeous. And I sent that to you, and it says to Kevin, "Love your movie wife, Kate Beckinsale."
But it was me and her attraction to me that just melted her.
I don't know about the attraction, but it was definitely you that got me the hookup here.
Let me have a little fantasy here. Come on now, man.
Fine. But tell us a little bit about this, because I also sent you a copy of my original Underworld DVD, and you got that signed for me as well. But she was signing. What convention was it?
It was Tampa Bay Comic-Con, probably about 4 years ago now. And it actually turned into a really weird event and kind of scary event for her, because
she had a stalker that was
she had a stalker who was
she was working with the police to try and capture this guy, right?
And he showed up at Tampa Bay Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And they caught him. And it caused a delay in her appearance. But you know what? She came in. She was wonderful to everybody. She was absolutely amazing. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, if you think she's beautiful on screen, it matches nothing to in person.
The thing you told me I thought was really cool was that she obviously had all the faith in the authorities to take care of this, and they did. And she didn't let it get to her. It didn't shake her. And she seemed to be wonderful with the fans, is what you told me.
Yeah, absolutely. And considering all the circumstances behind it, she was amazing. I mean, she really was. She was about an hour late to her booth because she had to go identify the guy.
Right.
But other than that, she was amazing. She was apologetic to everybody, and everybody was really understanding. And I mean, and she was just a total sweetheart. I went up to her, I explained the whole situation to her, and she's like, "I would absolutely love to do that for your friends."
So how did you word that exactly? Was it awkward for you to say that?
No, she was.
Because I said, dude, I would love it if she could actually say that, and you got her to write that.
Yeah, and it was basically, I told her, I said, I have a friend who would love to be here. You had some family commitments. I think you had something with your daughter at that weekend. Yeah. And I just said, he's a huge fan. We have this kind of running joke that you're his movie wife. Would you be okay? So, and she gave that beautiful smile and said, absolutely. And just
makes me love her even more.
And Kevin, it's good that it was probably me, because you would have probably been a melted pile of goo at my feet at that point.
You would have had to take over anyway, dude.
Exactly.
But you had pictures of that event, and you even sent me like a little card with a little certificate thing of them signing it, because on the picture and also on the DVD, there's a little like celebrity authentics thing with a little certificate of authentic thing, on there. So that was cool. But thank you for that. That was really cool, and I'm jealous that you got to meet her. And hopefully one day I'll get a chance to do that as well. So yeah. Well. First of all, I want to say this for the record, on this podcast. Thank you for doing that. That was a huge solid. Appreciate it.
Oh man, it was my pleasure. You would have done the same for me if the shoes had been reversed.
Yes, definitely. Now, real quick, I want to mention one of the cool things about this film that I wanted to get your take on, like right at the top of the episode here, was one of the things that attracted to me to this film, not just of course Kate Beckinsale, but the overall look of it. But the vampire and werewolf, the Lycans, they've had this long centuries battle. But I love the fact that it goes high tech, and it's set in current day. They're not just using swords and whatever ways that they help, rip each other's heads off. They're using like high tech weapons. The Lycans have those special bullets. What is it? The
ultraviolet
UV,
bullets.
the ultraviolet bullets, and then the vampires take that technology,
silver nitrate bullets,
and make the silver nitrate bullets and go back and forth. But that was one of the things, and we'll talk about the weapons later on. But I wanted to get your take on that part and the aspect of this film.
It was one of the things I loved about this film. And Kevin, to be honest with you, to talk about this early, I remember before this film came out, there was a thing going around. It was going around at conventions, and it was even airing on TV on certain things. It was kind of a behind the scenes of this movie coming out, because they were hyping this movie. And I remember just seeing it and seeing the designs of the Lycans and what the concept was. And I was just like, I was sold. I was all in. But they were really marketing Underworld in a pretty unique way as before it came out, by giving you this behind the scenes background thing. And I hadn't seen a movie do that since the 80s, I think, where they gave you kind of the behind the scenes as a selling point of the film.
Yeah, it was. I know some movies have done it before, but a lot of movies wait to show you that on the DVD, or whatever afterwards. And so it was nice to be teased by this and stuff. So yeah, that's an excellent point. So we have some theatrical posters here. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Kyle. I had to control myself. I put in 4 different versions of these posters. I could have put in 10 to 20.
Oh yeah.
But the most iconic one, of course, and is the one that you got me signed, is the DVD Blu-ray cover with a big, huge moon behind Selene perched on this building top. And then you see like a silhouette of a werewolf sort of hiding in the moon itself. And you see Selene with a cool gun making a great pose. Coming September 19th, 2003. That is the most iconic one. Then there's another one that shows her kind of on the streets of, looks like Hungary, which is where it was filmed. And it says, an immortal battle for supremacy. And she has both her guns out with her long trench coat and the moon behind her. Then there's kind of a reverse one on some video releases where she's kind of crouched down on that building perch top. And there's one that's kind of a banner poster, similar of the second one that I spoke of, that says Underworld. With a really cool backlit behind her. What's your take on these posters, and which one is your favorite?
I'm a big fan of the original movie poster.
Me too.
Me too. That was just summed it up. I do like the alternate DVD cover too. I've always liked the
crouching one.
I think that's a good, the crouching one. I think that's a good look. The 2 banner posters are what they are. I think that first one just stands out so well. You've got Selene, then you have the full moon, but with the werewolf in shadow on the moon.
The fact that she's holding a handgun in her hand, and that you're getting a touch on, I mean, if you just see the poster, you don't know that she's a vampire because it doesn't say, but she very much looks it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So some taglines here. An immortal battle for supremacy on September 19th. All hell breaks loose. The fall, when the battle begins, which side? Oh, excuse me. This fall, when the battle begins, which side will you choose? Kate, of course. So, Kyle, look back, 2003. Where were you? Where and when did you first see this film, and what kind of impact did it have on you?
I saw this film opening night. I went with my buddy Steve Brown, and I was blown away by this film. I loved the look of it. I loved everything. I loved everything about it. Maybe the only little bit of knock I had on this film was the city stuff at times felt a little out of place to me.
What do you mean by city stuff?
Well, okay, more involving at the beginning with Scott Speedman's character of Michael Corvus.
I see. Above ground, above the underworld.
Above the underworld.
Why was it? What is it that kind of threw you off?
I think it was just because we weren't really sure where we were at that point. They never really clarify the city,
like what
in the
time
movie.
frame and what
and
city
time frame,
and stuff like that. Yeah,
and things like that. And again, it just it felt like okay, there's a lot more going on in the city than what they're letting you know about. The whole how his friends at the hospital were acting and how the cops were acting and things like that. It just felt like you weren't. Later on, you get a little bit of clarity on things, but that part just always has felt a little bit out of place to me.
That they spend more time in the underworld and not enough developing the overworld or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I think that was probably done on purpose, but I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. I can't remember exactly where and when I saw this, but I know I saw it when I was working in Virginia for that game company, because I was there for like 6 years, and I was always traveling on the move somewhere. But I know I probably saw it locally there in Virginia Beach or in downtown Norfolk, where I was working at the time. And I was sold from the get-go on this. I got to tell you, though, when it comes to Kate Beckinsale, I didn't really know. She wasn't forefront in my thoughts. I remember seeing Serendipity, and I liked that. And I remember, of course, Pearl Harbor. But this was obviously the film that put her on the map for me. But I was a big vampire fan and always have been. I was drawn into it probably from some of the press that was done on this, like you spoke of earlier. And I love the kind of look that it had. And it was, something that I probably saw more than once in the theater, and definitely got it when it came out on home video. What were some of your favorite scenes, Kyle?
Honestly, there wasn't. If I'm gonna talk to favorite scenes, I love the early fight between Selene's Death Dealers and the Lycans right at the beginning.
In the subway scene, the opening one. That's a good one.
Subway, that's really good. Everything, the last about 20 minutes of the film is just phenomenal. Her fight with Victor, we see Michael go through the change. Really, and I'll tell you what, anytime she's on screen with Michael Sheen, that was just, everything about that was outstanding. Really, like I said, except for those scenes where it just felt like, you were kind of like, what the heck is going on here a little bit, especially the first time you saw it, as far as the overworld thing. Anything really, there wasn't a bad scene in this movie, in my opinion. I think everything fit really well.
You did have to watch it more than once to pick up on certain things. I did notice that, but I did not have a problem with that.
No, exactly. I know for some people, one of the things they kind of, at the time, and it was more, I think, of the time than anything, I heard it from more than one person, was they had a problem with the Eurotrash vampire, as they called it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that was more of anything, just what people were feeling at the time, and what was in and what was out and what people were over at that point. And I think that was something, but I mean, it just, like I said, I think the two biggest drawbacks is to the film, and it's not so much because I think there's so much was the overworld stuff. And like you said, it's one of those films you do have to go back. You don't catch everything at once because sometimes the scenes are happening too fast. They talked very low in the beginning of this film.
True.
And it was sometimes a little hard to understand what they were saying.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny it's funny you say that, because I've rewatched this twice, but of course nowadays I always put the closed caption on it, so sometimes you catch things. I love that beginning subway fight too. Of course, that's when Selene realizes that the Lycans are using those new bullets versus against the vampires, and I love the Selene and Michael escape from Lucian. That's a really cool scene. It's a crucial scene too, because Michael gets infected there. But I remember seeing the behind the scenes, because you see Lucian being like chasing them from behind the car. And I remember because that's Michael Sheen's character, and he's running really fast. And they did this cool thing where the car or truck or whatever it was they were in was towing this kind of like basically a long piece of like carpet type of thing. And so, and he was running on it, or the stunt person was running on it. So it looked like he was running faster than he actually was. So it was pretty cool. Now, I know this is a silly thing, but I love these scenes. I call these the Vampire Coven walkthrough scenes.
Okay, yeah.
It's to kind of set up what the Coven looks like and how everything's are. And I love the beginning one where you see Selene with her coat on, and then Craven. They're walking through this, and you see all the other like Coven groupies and sired slaves or mentors or whatever you want to call them. But then there's that second scene where Selene's in trouble. And she's walking through the coven scene, and it's like all those like other vampires are looking at her like, wow, how dare you return? There's that one like vampire girl going, girl, you in trouble type of look, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, then the end fight scene, of course, with Victor and Craven. And that's when you see Michael fully turn into his werewolf / vampire hybrid monster. And he looks really, really cool. So this is kind of a no-brainer, but thought I'd ask it anyway, Kyle. Movie crush time. Who's our movie crush?
Oh, come on. It's Kate Beckinsale, but it's runner up. It's not honorable mention. It's runner up because I do have a thing for Sophia Myles. I
agree with you, man. She's kind of like the other Craven girlfriend groupie, and she wants him. You can tell and stuff. And I also liked her too in the Moonlight TV series in 2007 and 2008, where she played Beth Turner, and that stars Michael O'Loughlin, who played a vampire but was also like a detective, and that was kind of like his day job. Yes.
If you want a fun movie with her too, she did the Thunderbirds movie with Bill Paxton, where she played Lady Penelope.
Right? Yeah, that was a good one. I like that one definitely.
And she was also, for Doctor Who fans, one of the most famous episodes of the Tennant run, The Girl in the Fireplace. She was the main character in that, Renette.
Back to Moonlight real quick, by the way, is great. It only lasted one season, but it had Veronica Mars alumni Jason Doring.
Yes, I remember that.
And he played like the elder vampire, an old friend of Alex O'Loughlin's character, Mick St. John. Of course, Alex has been very popular lately with doing the Hawaii Five-0 TV series. So, yeah. But Kate Beckinsale. I mean, come on, this is her franchise. This kind of made her, I guess, wouldn't you say? I mean, she was getting kind of tired of doing all of these kind of period costume, artsy fartsy, romantic comedy stuff. And then she comes out, she plays the hot, gorgeous vampire that kicks ass, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, just nobody's worked a leather suit better. I'm sorry. What's funny about this too, and I don't think that when this movie was initially made, they thought it was going to be Kate Beckinsale's franchise. Let's not forget how popular Scott Speedman was at the time this movie was made.
I've totally forgotten about that.
Because he was coming off he was still doing Felicity at the time.
That's right.
Felicity was like just the uber popular show. And I think the idea was to have if they were going to continue it was supposed to be more on the Michael Corvus character, and everybody fell so much in love with Kate Beckinsale and Selene in this film that they just ran with it. Of course, it helps too that she married the director.
This is true. We're going to touch on that a little bit later, but yeah, that's that was interesting as well. She's had more than one relationship with people involved in this film, but I know Scott was a name. But the way this movie was done, promoted with the posters and stuff, it's all about Kate.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and so I think she was the biggest selling point. But I could definitely see that Scott was definitely someone there, because I know a lot of the girls, Scott Speedman, good-looking guy.
I mean, and you look at it, too. I think Kate was to bring in the guys, because it was definitely going to be more of a guy film. But I think the idea was to introduce Scott Speedman, maybe make him the next kind of action star.
It's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, this film had some legal issues, Kyle. Lawsuit. And I'm not surprised by this. The film was the subject of a copyright infringement lawsuit filed by White Wolf, Inc. and Nancy A. Collins, claiming the setting was too similar to the Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game and the Werewolf the Apocalypse games, both set in the World of Darkness setting, and to the Sonia Blue vampire novels that were written by Nancy A. Collins. White Wolf filed 17 counts of copyright infringement and claimed over 80 points of unique similarity between White Wolf's gaming systems and the film. White Wolf also said the script was very similar to the story entitled The Love of Monsters from 1994, which they published, written by Nancy A. Collins as well. In September 2003, a judge granted White Wolf an expedited hearing. The lawsuit ended in a confidential settlement, Kyle.
Kevin?
I think they ripped this off.
But here's the thing, because I remember this even back in the days when I was working in the comic shop in Alaska. White Wolf did act like they just had the cornerstone on anything vampire werewolf.
They were it though, man. They were it, and the world that they provided in those vampire role playing games. I know because that was my first experience with live action role play, LARPing, and I could totally see where this was coming from because there was also werewolves you had to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I mean, it just felt like anytime anybody put out anything vampire or werewolf in the 90s outside of like the Dracula film, White Wolf was all over them.
Yeah. They, like I said, they covered a lot, and I'm sure they were inspired by a lot of earlier stuff as well. I'm not familiar with the Sonia Blue vampire novels, but I'm not gonna say that this was not a legitimate gripe, and because especially the fact that it ended in a confidential settlement, I'm sure they were like, "Yeah, you busted us. Here's some money." So anyway. But Len Wiseman, the director of this film, was also his first feature film debut, and he's made a little name for himself, Kyle. He also directed one of the, or is it one or is it two of the Die Hard films?
I think it was just the one.
Yeah. What else has he done? He's also done. He worked on Total Recall, the remake. But I guess he's working on McClane, which is like a kind of a prequel to Die Hard. But I think that obviously it'll take place in current day as well, from what I heard. But yeah, he directed Total Recall. He did Live Free or Die Hard. That was the one that he did. Yeah.
Here's a couple interesting things. So from him on the producer side, he's done 3 pretty major comic book series recently. Was the executive producer for Lucifer. Mm-hmm. He was the executive producer for the Fox X-Men series, The Gifted. And he was executive producer for the recent DC Swamp Thing series, which was on the DC Universe, which actually just premiered on CW for the first time and pulled in really strong ratings. So there's actually a lot of talk of that being resurrected. But I'm more interested in things he's got executive producer and producer as announced, including a Sin City TV series and an Underworld TV series.
Ooh, yes, me likey.
He was also an executive producer on Sleepy Hollow as well.
He also did a Megadeth video. That's a couple of those were video shorts. I like that. But of course, he's also known more as Mr. Kate Beckinsale because, of course, he ended up marrying Kate after working together on this film as well. So, but I liked his Die Hard film he did. I liked that one. I thought that was good. And the story was by Len Wiseman, Kevin Grevioux, and Danny McBride. Not that Danny McBride, the other Danny McBride. Just so you know, 2 different Danny McBrides. But let's talk about the cast here, Kyle. Of course, we've spent some time on Kate Beckinsale here, a little bit on Scott Speedman, but let's, I think we've, well, at least I've professed my love to my movie wife, Kate Beckinsale.
No, let me put it this way. Kate Beckinsale is on my friends list. For sure.
You're my... Well, for my MySpace page, she's like number 1. So,
Kevin Rice, the only person who still has a MySpace page that is regularly active, ladies and gentlemen.
But I did want to mention though, she was really good in that TV series called The Widow. Have you heard about? Did you ever see that series?
Oh yes, Amazon. Yeah, she was phenomenal.
That was a really good series where she's searching for, I think, what was it, her husband's killer or something like that in South Africa or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was a really good series. She was good in that. But let's talk about the other cast in here as well. Of course, we got Scott Speedman as Michael Sheen as Lucian, Shane Brolly as Craven, and of course the awesome Bill Nighy as Victor. And we did touch on Sophie Myles as well. But this had a really, even Wentworth Miller, he played the doctor in this one. But this had a good cast.
Yeah, no, it was a very good cast. And at the time, a cast of people who maybe, except for maybe Bill Nighy, people really didn't know either. Michael Sheen had been around, but not really set in there. That was my first experience with Shane Brolly as Craven, and I thought he was amazing in that role. Obviously, Scott Speedman, people knew from Felicity. Kate Beckinsale, really, this is kind of the movie that put her over the top. But Kevin, can I talk about Kevin Grevioux for just a minute?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about him or his voice?
Well, that's right. But Bull, that's what I'm going to get to. So here is this man that you just do not ever want to meet in a back alley if you were just to go by the look of him. You want to make sure he was on your side. Yes. And then he speaks. And you're like, one of these things is not like the other.
Dude's got a deep voice, man.
Yeah.
Deep voice. Yes.
Yeah. He's the kind of guy that you just want to go hang out with. You want to go have some beers with, hang out at the Blues Club, and be good.
He's from Minneapolis, Minnesota, but he was born in Chicago. I guess he was in Men in Black, Charlie's Angels, obviously playing like the bruiser type, and he definitely made an impression in the beginning of this film in that subway fight. I was a fan, and still am actually, of Robbie Gee, who played Khan. This guy was great.
I liked him.
Yeah, he was the guy that was kind of like the techie guy.
Yeah, the weapons master.
Yeah, the weapons master guy.
He was the vampire Q.
Exactly. Good way to put it. And I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff before, so I'm curious to see what else too. He was also he's in Snatch. He played Vinny, and he was also in Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest. But he's just a cool guy. Good presence about him. I'm a fan of his. So. Any other comments on the cast there, Kyle?
Just that I think it was a cast that fit perfectly together for this kind of movie. There wasn't anybody really who outshine. There wasn't that name to outshine everybody else.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah, definitely. Running time was a little over 2 hours, hour and 21 minutes. Released on September 19th, 2003. Budget was about $22 million. Made almost all that back in its opening weekend in the U.S. At around just over 21 million. USA gross was 52 million, and worldwide gross was just over 95 million. So that's a good return, and obviously made enough money for the good budget that it was. I mean, only 22 million.
Yeah, I was going to say, you look at this movie, you wouldn't think it had just a $22 million budget.
Well, I'll tell you right now, and I'll tease this going forward, but the reason why is because it was filmed in Hungary. And obviously it was cheaper to produce over there, which also led to the very cool look of the film. So,
yeah. Well, but I mean, when you look at especially the werewolf effect.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, and one of my biggest pet peeves about films is when they shoot everything in the dark and it's rainy to hide special effects. Yeah, but you know what? I have to give this one a pass because, first of all, it's about vampires. You can't shoot them out in the daylight anyway. But I did mention it when you were kind of having a little issue of the above ground cityscape. It was raining, so I thought that was kind of funny. But I thought the effects were pretty good, especially when these Lycans are turning into these badass werewolves, and you see the face kind of contorting, especially when you see what happens to Michael. For 2003, I thought these were pretty good effects, especially how gory it got too.
Yeah, exactly. I thought they did a very good job with that, and I did love the look of the hybrid Michael Corvus.
Oh yeah, he kind of had that weird kind of blue tinty thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very cool. So, Kyle, guess what? Critics didn't really like this film. Go figure.
Oh, come on. Are you telling me Roger Ebert did not like this film, Kevin Wright?
No, he said this is a movie so paltry in its characters and shallow in its story that the war seems to exist primarily to provide graphic visuals. Come on, Raj.
Come on, you know Roger had this whole collection on DVD before he passed away.
Oh, I bet he did. So Underworld has a 31% overall approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and they say that though stylish to look at, Underworld is tedious and derivative. You get what you get. I mean, it's vampires against like werewolves. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that's the problem with this movie, though. This is where the cult status comes in, because I think for a lot of this is not the kind of movie that appeals to the large general masses. This movie was designed to appeal to a specific grouping, and it did.
Yeah,
but the problem is because it did that, it didn't appeal to the general masses. Hence, why people outside of Cinema Score and the New York Daily News, who we'll get to in a minute here, just don't know what they're watching.
This is true. Yeah, Cinema Score did give it a B+. New York Daily News says praised it for being stylish and cruel and mightily entertaining for certain covens out there. I think that kind of sums up the fan base that we have here. So yeah, this is a good one though. Salon reviewer Andrew O'Hare gave it a mixed review, stating, "By any reasonable standard, this dark vampire epic, all massive overacting, cologne commercial design, and sexy cat suit sucks. But that at least it gives a crap," conceding that despite the movie's flaws, the complex vampire werewolf mythology backstory has been meticulously worked out.
And you know what? That review is probably the most accurate of this in the aspect of, I think that's what made Underworld successful, was because they built a great world.
They did. They did their backstory. Of course, they even did a prequel, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But yeah, by the way, I have it playing right here. Is that cool scene with that vampire with the cool whips? You know, like these metal whips. Love that scene as he's fighting the big Lycan werewolf guy. So there was an alternate version of the video release in the original release of the movie. Played by the woman that played Sonia, Victor's daughter, in the flashback scenes. However, after the release of the prequel, Underworld: Rise of the Lycans in 2009, a version is available, most notably on U.S. Netflix, where Rona Mitra, who was in Rise of the Lycans, were inserted in place of the original scenes. The unrated extended cut contains 12 minutes of additional footage and 11 minutes of replacement footage. Also, a kiss between Michael and Selene, which she unchains him in Lucian's lab, appears in the trailer, but was not included in the theatrical release or the DVD, but it is on the unrated version of Underworld. Kyle, I have my DVD here, the original one, and then I got like that collection of all of them, and I actually bought them all on digital as well, so I have all that covered. But I don't know if I've actually have the extended unrated cut, and I have not watched the Netflix version, because the one that I watched had the original scene flashback, not of the one with Rona Mitra.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I've never seen that extended cut, though I could have sworn I've seen at some point the kiss between Michael and Selene.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Selene drives a 1980 Jaguar XJ6 Series 3 and a Maserati 3200 GT. They did not skimp on the cars in this one, Kyle.
No. You take the Jaguar, I'll take the Maserati. We'll all be happy.
But that's what was cool about this movie, is that it was updated, and we alluded to it earlier about the weapons. We'll talk briefly about that now. Many of the handguns in this film were iconic.
Time out.
Wait, what?
If we're gonna talk weapons, we must do it properly.
All right, sorry, Kevin. You're right. My bad. Okay,
rewind.
Here we go. All
Yep.
Right. Here's a weapon segment. Ready? Guns, guns, guns. Everybody's got guns. Quote from
I'm
RoboCop.
happy now.
Yeah.
I'm happy now.
You happy now?
Yeah. Continue.
Love that RoboCop line. Although many weapons were used in this movie, the iconic handguns in the subway scene were Beretta 92Fs, also called Beretta 93Rs. They are full auto and have 25 to 30 rounds each. The Berettas have been modified to fire full auto and contain barrel weights. Kyle, this is some of the cool scenes where you see these handguns, but they have extended magazines, and specifically with this great new weaponized ammo for against the werewolves and of course the vampires. This is one of the cool things about this, is that I'm kind of a gun nut when it comes to movies, and when they're used well or in a cool way, this is one of the things I liked about this film.
Oh yeah, the weapon usage in this film, because you could tell they got proper training. They weren't just acting it up per se, as some films will do, have a tendency to do.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. There was a 9mm Heckler and Koch. Many of the Lycans, including Lucian, used nickel-plated Desert Eagle 44 Magnums. The Mr. Deep voice, Kevin, is it Grevioux? Is that how you say his name?
Grevioux, I believe.
Grevioux?
Yes, sir. He
used two 9mm Steyr TMPs. Khan's rifle is a M4A carbine rifle fitted with a scope. So yeah, the guns in this film were used well, and the fact too that the vampires had on, even though they had those cool long overcoats and trench coats, they were all tactical stuff. They had extra ammo packs and everything like that. Just it was a great combination of old school vampire look, but with new school kind of. I would say part of this was probably inspired by The Matrix a little bit when it came to the long coats and
Oh yeah, this movie does steal from a lot of things. Let's be honest here.
Which is why it's so good. The music, the film soundtrack was produced by Danny Lerner and produced by Roadrunner Records. Lerner is a bass guitarist, and keyboardist who has recorded with Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson. He contributed several songs to the soundtrack under the pseudonym Reinholder. Music critic Bill Nighy noted that the soundtrack follows in a similar gothic vein to the visuals and stated that it does an excellent job setting the dark mood by using a vertible who's in the genre with an impressive array of metal, hard rock, industrial, and otherwise gothic themed tracks. And some of the more notable songs on this one, Kyle, and I actually have the soundtrack in my hand because I bought this as soon as it came out, because if you want to get your gothy vampire on, this is a good soundtrack for that. We have songs called Now I Know, performed by Danny Lerner. Additional vocals by Amy Lee of Evanescence. Also Down in the Lab by Danny and Amy Lee. Death Dealer's Descent, also by Danny and Amy Lee. And then they had Bring Me the Disco King, performed by David Bowie, which was just a weird thing to have, but there is a tie to that later on I'll bring up. Judith, performed by Perfect Circle. I guess it's a Pacifier. They have a song on here as well. Or is it Pucifier? I think it is. And then Awakening by The Damning Well, Optimist by Skinny Puppy. But there's also a song called Rocket Collecting that is written and performed by Mila Jovovich, Kyle. We like Mila, don't we?
Mila could have very easily been Selene.
Yes, she could have been. She could have, but she's kind of got her own franchise with Resident Evil.
Yeah, she did Resident. But if Mila hadn't done Resident Evil, she could have easily been in the Selene role.
Yes, and that would have been a good thing as well. So yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned before, Kyle, filming locations. I want to ask you about this. Oh, hold on. Back up to the music. What was your whole take on the music before I get to the filming locations? I just kind of ran through it, but I want to get your thought on it. Did you feel it was like done well?
I think it done. It was done well. I thought it fit very well with the film. To be honest with you, the soundtrack really didn't register with me until later in the later viewings of this film. I was so caught up in the world they built and
visually, you're like stuck to it visually.
Yeah, and Kate Beckinsale. I mean, come on. Before we go any further, the ice blue contact eyes look she was wearing in these movies.
Yeah, it's kind of hot.
Yeah, just saying.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yep. Among other things.
Yep.
Where were we? I forgot.
We were talking about filming locations.
Yes, before we get to our break here, then head to trivia. The filming locations, they were Budapest, Hungary, all over Hungary, basically. A lot of the exteriors, too, were in Hungary. And a lot of films have been filmed there. And I have not had a chance to go to Hungary myself or Budapest, but I've had friends that have been there. And it's the cool thing about the city, especially Budapest, is that it can fit, filming wise, it can fit a lot of other different cities in Europe. And there's just gorgeous buildings there, cobblestone streets, Gothic looking buildings and churches, beautiful rivers going through Budapest as well. I thought personally, Kyle, that this was a perfect setting for this movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. Makes me want to ask you a question though, because in the films they don't, at least in the first film, they don't really identify where you're at. They don't They don't give you the name. It's just an unknown. It's just a random city for all we know.
Yeah, you definitely have a feeling though that it's like an Eastern European city though.
A little bit, but I mean, still, there was enough things you could have placed it somewhere else too. But what I'm saying is, did you like the fact they didn't really tell us where they were at?
Yes, I did. Yeah, because that's not the story. Because it's alluding to the fact that there is an underworld, and this underworld could be anywhere and is anywhere. So yeah, I definitely did like that. The fact that Michael's American, or at least, English speaking, you could have thought it could have been somewhere, in the States somewhere, but. Yeah. So we're going to take a little break here. We got trivia with and more, of course, more Couch Potato Theater discussion. We're going to take a break and let you know what other great podcasts are here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to the Fandom Podcast Network and all of the other awesome shows we have to offer. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture news podcast. Bloody Kings, our Highlander podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite pop culture topics. End Zone, the NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s and 90s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. And our newest show, Making Treks, a new Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also find us on Facebook under Fandom Podcast Network. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter under Fandom Podcast Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. All right, welcome back to Couch Potato Theater, Underworld 2003. Now, we got some trivia. I always like to have fun with this. Days before its U.S. opening, the president of Screen Gems greenlit not only a sequel to the movie Underworld, but also a prequel after seeing the numbers of tickets sold in Canada alone, Kyle. Canada apparently bought a bunch of tickets, and they were like, you know what? Let's greenlit this.
I just got one thing. Brandon Shea Matala, if you can fill us in on any of this Canadian stuff, we'll gladly take it. Yeah, I remember actually reading
Tom
that.
Caldwell, he's up there too. So, yeah.
I actually remember hearing about that right before we go see it, that Screen Gems were just so happy with the initial surge that this had that they were all in on greenlighting because it made its budget back opening weekend. And, I think they realized they had a bit of a franchise on their hands. Definitely.
And, what makes it important is when you have a rich world that is introduced in the film, just like John Wick gave us. As soon as you finished watching the first film, you wanted more because you wanted to know more about that world, and we got that. Now, this is kind of funny, Kyle. Around 37 minutes in, the attack dogs outside the vampire mansion were actually very docile and playful canines, which were the only dogs available at the time. For the scene where they chased Scott Speedman, director Len Wiseman had to film short clips of the dogs running and later put in sounds of vicious barking. If you look closely, you can see their tails happily wagging back and forth. We wanted mean dogs, darn it!
Scott Speedman was probably going, thank gosh they weren't mean.
Now, Kyle, Kate Beckinsale is my movie wife. But Did you know I have a second movie wife?
Would it be the fact that she was probably cloned from Kate Beckinsale? Because when you can't get Kate Beckinsale, you get Rona Mitra.
Rona Mitra, who was considered for Selene, would later play Sonia in Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, which came out in 2009. And yes, you're right, Kyle. That's actually something that my fiance Erin said. She's like, oh, yeah, Rona Mitra. Yeah, you get her if you can't get Kate Beckinsale.
Okay. So, Kevin, I'm going to do you a solid right now.
Oh, please do.
Are you aware or have you ever watched the show Nip Tuck?
I have, actually. I didn't watch it all the way through. I want to say be honest with you, Kyle. I think I watched the first 2 seasons, maybe part of the third one, and it just got too
weird. Yeah.
Slashy, cutty. Yeah.
However, Rona Mitra is in, I believe it's the 3rd season of Nip Tuck. Mm-hmm. And when I say she's in the 3rd season, she is in the 3rd season.
I see where you're going. We'll have to check that
Revisit
out.
That.
Of course, we did a Couch Potato Theater a while ago.
Doomsday,
yes, that she starred in, and that is to me her movie. And Love that movie. Yeah, Doomsday is kind of like a Mad Max type of version of apocalypse film that takes place in the UK in the near future.
What's funny though with Rona Mitra is, of course, the fact that she actually becomes part of the Underworld franchise herself. Later on. So yeah, she's done a few other things that we're checking out. If I can just run these off real quick.
Yeah, please do.
She did a show called The Last Ship.
I remember that.
TNT
I watched
show.
several episodes of that. Yeah,
she was in several episodes of The Strain, and she has also been on Supergirl many a time.
Oh, I did not know that. I liked her small part in Mark Wahlberg's Shooter. The sniper movie. Yes. She was good in that. So, Rona. Yep. I would love to actually see Rona and Kate in a movie together. I would lose my mind.
No, Kevin.
Like an actioneer type thing or something. Come on. This can happen, right?
It might lead to your divorce, but
all right, enough on that. Okay. So not only in this movie did Kate Beckinsale meet her future husband, director Len Wiseman, but at the time she was in a long-term relationship with actor Michael Sheen, who plays Lucian. Now, what's cool about this, Kyle, is that they're all friends now. Michael and Kate share a daughter together who appear in the film during a flashback when Selene was younger. Michael and Len have since become very close friends and have collaborated with each other on Underworld, Rise of the Lycans. It came out in 2009. Michael and Kate still remain very close, and both are raising their daughter equally. Kate has stated that Michael is her best friend, and they still remain very close. Aww, this is so cute. Yeah. They're all friends and stuff.
Yeah, that's very nice. There's one of the pieces of trivia I want to read to here.
Yes,
Kevin,
please do.
According to writer-actor Kevin Garreau, the model for the Selene character was the psychic vampire of the Hellfire Club in the X-Men comics, the Black Queen Selene. Now, Kevin?
Yes.
If Kate Beckinsale had worn the Selene Black Queen outfit through the entire film, no man alive would have been able to walk out of the theater anytime soon.
Kyle, I'm going to write a note here after we record this podcast that I need to look that up. And we need to find this out. I want to see if I agree with you or not, because the look of Selene in Underworld is just fine.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's not, but
so what? This character, tell us real quick. How long of an arc did she have?
Oh, she's been a major X-Men character since the early Chris Claremont runs. In fact, one of her, I want to say she started coming into promise in the late '80s, early '90s X-Men.
Yeah.
She became the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club. She
sounds like a villain.
Oh, very much so.
Okay, because when you're part of a Hellfire Club, that don't sound like...
Yeah. Trust me, the Hellfire Club would be fun to go to, but you wouldn't want to be a member.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
No, I see where they got the look and get the idea from it. There's some differences just based off of powers and things like that, but the general look of it, yeah, very much so.
Gotcha. Well, the name Corvin was derived from Corvinus, is most likely a reference to Matthias Corvinus of Moldavia, who was an ally of Vlad Tepes, the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. Wasn't Moldavia one of those fake countries that was used in either several Hallmark films or where the assassination took place on, what was it, Dynasty? Remember? Or what was
it? It seems familiar.
It seems like Moldavia is a country that's made up, for these type of reasons. So yeah. So here, I wanted to mention this because of David Bowie's song is on the soundtrack. Len Wiseman wanted David Bowie to appear as a vampire in the Vampire's Feast, but due to some time problems, it didn't work out. Kyle, where would you have liked to have seen David Bowie in this? Because this would have been really cool, actually. And this probably would have made this film even bigger.
You know what? You just need a David Bowie cameo, and the best place for a David Bowie cameo would have been when we see the vampire coming for the first time in the house when Selene walks in, and you've got kind of all the, as we'll say, Eurotrash vampires floating around, and just to have a David Bowie cameo in there.
But he would have to have a scene, though, or maybe all those he would have his own little female coven or something like that. But man, he would also have to have a really cool kick-ass scene too. I would think.
Oh yeah, I would agree. So
Michael Sheen and Wentworth Miller both interviewed for the Scott Speedman role. The underground tunnels used for the Lycan vampire battle at the end of the movie were mostly shot of the same small rubble set, but shot from different angles and lighting in order to make it look like different locations. Len Wiseman was very clever. He laughed at the fact and pointed out the scenes, which is a lot of directors use for trick photography. So you can save money, but just use the same set and kind of switch things around and stuff. But interesting talking about Mila earlier, Kyle, because Halle Berry, Mila Jovovich, and Rhoda Mitra were considered for the lead role. Of all of these, do you think Mila would have been the best Selene if Kate didn't get it?
Honestly, yeah. Honestly, yes, because even though as much as I love Rona, I think Mila would have been able to fit the action side of things. Keep Halle Berry as far away from this as possible.
Catwoman. Yeah, good point. So I want to ask you about this, Kyle, because this is a movie is also that's being done on Couch Potato Theater for this month of vampires here in October of 2020. So the creator of the series approached Marvel Studios about doing a crossover with the Blade franchise with Wesley Snipes presumably reprising his role. Marvel declined, said they wanted to leave the door open to do something with Blade on their own terms. Do you think that would have worked? Do you think that would have been cool?
I don't know. I think the worlds would have been a little too different. And do you really want to trust Wesley Snipes around Kate Beckinsale?
She could probably kick his butt.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
But if you mean like actor to actress, yeah.
Well, yeah. I just wouldn't. I think that would have been a bad idea. I think it would have been too. It would have felt too forced as a fit.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess having this series on its own stands up. This stands up on its own. So yeah, that's a good point. So there was a scene in the script where Selene takes a shower and walks out naked, but Kate Beckinsale didn't want to film such a scene since she stopped doing nude scenes early in her career. This is also why her nude scenes for Underworld Evolution and Underworld Awakening were cut out of the films or removed from the scripts or cleverly edited.
Yeah, I was going to say cleverly edited because in Evolution, which is the sequel, she does have a very, very brief nude scene.
Yes, yeah, but it's done very well to where you don't see certain parts, So yeah. The scene was filmed with them naked, so yeah. Kate Beckinsale ironically played a human who fights vampires a year later in Van Helsing, Kyle.
Yeah, I try to forget about that movie.
I don't. Okay, it's not a great film, Kyle. Maybe not a good film. It's a guilty pleasure, but she looks really good in that, and she kicks.
She does. But I want to get to one of the things too, just because it is one of the most memorable scenes in the movie, is how well Sophia Myles hisses at human beings. That is still to me one of the most memorable scenes of that movie.
It is. It definitely is. Yep. Yeah. I could see. Do you think she could recreate that? That'd be kind of nice. I don't know. The body count was 67, Kyle.
That'd be higher.
Yeah, definitely. I love this. This is great. On an episode of Mythbusters, the experiment proved that Selene could not, in fact, shoot a circular hole in the ground to escape the Lycans. This has been done more than once, Kyle. Okay, fine. It still is an awesome scene, though.
Mythbusters are no fun sometimes.
We have to say it just because it's, it's here. Michael Sheen plays a Lycan, a werewolf, who dislikes vampires because of the war in which his vampire girlfriend was killed. In a later movie, however, he would play a vampire who hates werewolves in the Twilight Saga.
Okay, so I can admit I have never seen any of the Twilight movies all the way through, but I remember when I caught I think it was the fight scene at the very end of the last Twilight film where it was everybody in, and I'm just looking at all the actors who were in that I recognized from like really hardcore science fiction stuff. And I'm like, wow, okay, I'm actually kind of impressed. And then once I realized it was a Twilight thing, I'm like, it burns! It makes me sparkle! But, yeah.
I don't mind watching them from time to time. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Wait. Let me get it out of the way. Hashtag Taylor Lautner, Alex Autry, you owe me money.
So let's talk about the sequels briefly. And there was a prequel as well. The sequel titled Underworld Evolution came out in January 2006. And it picks up directly from the previous film where Selene and half werewolf and vampire Michael, they hunt for clues to reveal their history. We get a great flashback to 2002 with the vampire elders with Marcus and Victor. So we get that kind of look back on it as well. And then it takes us to present day where Selene takes Michael to a safe house so that he can confront the vampire regent Craven, who knows that Craven intends to kill Marcus and plans to stop him. Kyle, I'm actually was very impressed with this sequel. I thought it was a very good sequel. Especially the fact that it takes place right after the last one. You can watch these back to back. What was your take on the sequel?
I enjoyed it. I think it got a little confusing at points. It was another one where it took a few rewatchings to catch everything that's going on. Craven kind of goes out like a bitch in this film.
True. Yep.
But I liked it. I liked the world, how it developed the world. That's the one thing, at least with the first three Underworld films, they really build this very intriguing world.
They do. And the standout in that film, too, is Tony Curran, who plays Marcus. And you've seen him in a lot of films. He's that redheaded guy. He's got a really cool voice, and he's like that vampire elder that has the stabbing wings, and he flies, and he's very creepy looking in that.
His best role, his most famous role in Fandom to date, however, is Vincent Van Gogh in Doctor Who.
I'll take your word for that. I have not seen that. Sure. So then we get the prequel after this. Now, I'll be honest with you, Kyle. I didn't know that this was the plan from the get-go, as we mentioned earlier, that they were going to do a sequel and a prequel. And when I heard that it was a prequel without Kate Beckinsale, I was like, what? But then I heard that Rona Mitra was in it. I was like, yeah, okay. All right. I like this. And it's the origin is centered around this centuries-old feud between the race of the vampires and the Lycans, the werewolves. And it tells a story how Lucian, the first werewolf, was capable of taking human form, and the first to be called a Lycan. And then Victor, the vampire elder, raises the child, envisioning a race of Lycan slaves to guard the Coven's fortress during the day and working as laborers and vampires at night. And then, of course, this is where we learn about the love triangle, or the love of Lucian getting killed, the daughter of Victor, and all that kind of stuff. Kyle, what was your take on this?
I actually love this. I think I actually liked this one more than I liked the sequel. What I liked about it was, one, I love the characters of Victor and Lucian. Yeah, I thought they were highlights of the first film. I love getting to see more of them. I thought Rona Mitra was
Michael Sheen and Bill Nighy are just great in this.
Yeah. And you know what? I love the fact that it was a prequel that made sense to do. Yep. It wasn't just a prequel that was forced. It was a prequel that made sense to do to give you the complete story.
Well said. I was a little underwhelmed with Underworld, Rise of the Lycans at first, but it grew on me after a while. And I actually, I do like it, so it's a good one. Real quick, though, back to Evolution. When I was talking to Erin, when I was going to be doing this podcast, she kind of rolled her eyes going, all right, you're going to talk about Kate, gotcha. But she told me she thinks that Underworld Evolution, the sequel, she thinks it's better than the original film. So that's interesting.
Yeah. No, I can see where some people would think that.
Yeah.
However, Kevin, do we have to talk about what happens after Underworld Rise of the Lycans?
Yes, we do. The second sequel, Underworld Awakening, was released on January 20th, 2012. Dude, come on. It's got more Kate in it. Let's go with this. A few years after the event of the second film, both the government and the general public have become aware of the existence of the vampire Lycans. A program to study and potentially harness their powers soon escalates into an all-out genocide. And shortly after, the purge begins. Selene and Michael are captured by humans due to their enhanced vampire traits. Selene is imprisoned in a cryogenic suspension. What's your take on that one, Kyle? Not a fan?
Not a fan other than Kate looking good. But these next two sequels, one, to me, Michael gets the short end of the stick, obviously, because they basically kill him off without showing they killed him off.
Yeah. This was all about Kate Beckinsale and Selene. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was underwhelmed with this one as well. I still find it watchable, but I think they dropped the ball on this one because I love the fact that the public had become aware of vampires and werewolves and stuff, but didn't quite go where it was. Stephen Ree was in it, right? He was the one that played like the weird like scientist guy and stuff like that. But the third sequel, Underworld Blood Wars, came out January 6th in 2017. The remaining vampire covens are on the verge of annihilation by the Lycans. Both species are searching for Selene. The vampires seek justice for the death of Victor, while the Lycans, led by Marius, intend to use her to locate Eve, whose blood holds the key to building an army of vampire werewolf hybrids. What was your take on this one?
Yeah, again, kind of the same feeling. You know, what I think my problem was with these two films is they got so away from the original concept.
Yeah.
And it kind of, you know what, they felt more like a direct-to-video film than they really did an actual film. It was like, okay, we need some money. We're going to make another Underworld film. So.
Yeah, I can see that. I like the last one better, the Blood Wars, better than Awakening. I thought the set pieces were pretty cool, and basically it just set up Selene as kind of like the elder vampire. You know, she was she was the person to be put on top. So I'm glad that was done. But Kyle, there was more Underworld. Underworld, the Eternal War video game, which came out in 2003. I didn't know about this. There's a picture of it, of the PlayStation 2 version. Did you know about this?
No, actually, I don't remember this at all, but it makes sense. I mean, this was the kind of thing that would have easily made a popular video game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did not play this. I did not know it was a thing, but it'd be kind of nice to just have.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
I guess be a completist. Yeah.
By the way, Kyle, you just sent me a picture of this character we were speaking of earlier. That was
Selene.
Selene, that was inspired the Selene in Underworld, but this was the Selene in the comic book series. Yeah, I could definitely. This Selene has less clothes on. She looks like a dominatrix, basically. But yeah. That's a good picture, Kyle. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Real quick, though, the video game revolves around the eternal war between the vampires and Lycans. And apparently you can play... It says the player is tasked with taking to the battlefields where they must accomplish missions, whether protecting someone, killing someone, or letting an item from somewhere. So basic video game stuff. Yeah. Kyle, there's a lot of merchandise that has come out.
There has.
I don't really have any of this. I do remember seeing, I guess, Mezco. They've got an Underworld series as well. There's some pretty cool figures that are here and such, especially from like the sequels and stuff like that. But I never did pick up any Underworld toys or anything. Did you?
Yeah, nothing. No, because nothing really ever stood out, really, in those Underworld toys.
So we touched on it earlier. There's a possibility of some type of Underworld TV series. Remake, I would say no personally. Let's touch on that because it's too soon. And I think that regarding the TV series, I'm very curious what they're going to do with this. What do you want to see from the TV series?
You're either going in one of two directions. If Kate Beckinsale agrees to be involved, you could do a TV series picking up from the last film with Kate Beckinsale but kind of being the elder vampire and introduce some new characters. You could go another route if you're not going to have Kate Beckinsale, and that is telling stories before the events of the Underworld movie.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of a prequel series, picking up some of the battles between the Lycans and the werewolves over time.
You mean the Lycans and the vampires?
Yeah, the Lycans and the vampires, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing that I'm afraid of is the world is very, very cool, but a lot of the iconic characters from the movies are either dead or getting older, and I would like that if they do a TV series, maybe recast these characters and, like you said, do kind of a prequel to the film with these struggles between the vampires and the Lycans, or even something go back even further than that, maybe. But I don't want to do a prequel like the prequel because I do want to see it be set in current day, because that's one of the things I found really cool about that. Is like, I want to know, just like, is there a John Wick world could be out there? I want to know that there's an Underworld below us that could be out there on current day and time. What do you think?
Well, it is, Kevin. I've been there.
Dude, I'm trying to play it off. Come on.
Well, I'm sorry, but Kate took me on a tour. What am I supposed to do? Tell her?
Stop it.
Tell her no. You don't tell Selene no. What are you talking about, man?
I'm very curious. I think a TV series would definitely suit this world well.
It would have to be Amazon or Netflix. It can't be, because you've got to have the freedom.
Yes.
And I think you have to go with a streaming service. I think Amazon and Netflix would probably be the ones lined up to do it. Amazon already has a pretty good relationship with Kate Beckinsale. She'd agreed to come back to play Selene in any kind of fashion, so that's a possibility.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if she's going to be like they left her off in the last film where she's like the vampire elder. It would be great to kind of see her in the first episode, kind of setting up something, or referring to a certain point in time that this does. I don't know. We'll see. But I would love it if she was somehow available for this. Yep. So Kyle, let's wrap it up here, man. Let's get, first of all, how rewatchable is this for you?
It's highly rewatchable.
That's why it's on Couch Potato Theater, right?
Well, honestly, it's probably been about a year since I've watched it before we did this. But there was a point in time where Underworld was a regular on the cable rotation.
Oh, yeah.
Like easily once every couple of months you could find it. And usually I'd end up watching it if I came across it. So, this is going to be one of those movies too. You can watch it any time. You can just pop it in and watch it, and it is what it is.
What I thought was interesting, Kyle, was that the first film came out in September. Then all the other films were released in January. And I think that it found its home in January, but it also realized, we're not winning any awards. We don't have to worry about the award season. We're going to own January. And pretty much Underworld owned January. That was usually the biggest movie that came out at that time. And they were all successful. They didn't have a high budget. They filmed most of these either in Hungary. I think the last couple of them, they did film scenes in Vancouver or were filmed in Vancouver. So, yeah, definitely. For me, obviously, watchable. I try to watch definitely Underworld once a year. This time, though, I did watch Evolution, the second one. But I do want to go back and watch the third and the fourth one in the prequel just to kind of revisit that world and check it out. But let me ask you this thing, Kyle. When it comes to vampire-themed films, and we've been exploring that here on the Fandom Podcast Network for the month of October here in 2020, where does it sit with you when it comes to vampire films?
This is where things get weird with Underworld for me, because I don't consider it like a top 5 vampire film per se, but because Underworld is what it is, and it's so unique with the technology, the modernness of it, and so many other things. It's a fun, phenomenal film. But I almost don't think of it as a vampire film. You and in ways you forget that they're vampires in this series, because it doesn't make it an absolute focus of the series like a vampire movie normally would.
That's a good point, because you don't see a lot of the same tropes with vampire, like how vampires can get killed. And obviously you got the UV thing and the sunlight thing, but you basically, it's kind of like a clan war. Yeah. Or like a Hatfield and McCoy's type thing. So that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's a good like horror action kind of thing, but I don't know. I can't classify it as just a solely vampire film.
Then why are we doing it?
Because it's got werewolves and vampires, so it fits the motif.
And it's got Kate Beckinsale in it.
Oh, come on, yeah. Let's be honest. It's all about Kate. Kevin, what I would like to know is what part of your soul did you have to give up to do this podcast to Aaron?
She gets me. She understands it.
That's why they're getting married.
Interesting text too when she found out I was doing it. But I'll share that off of Mike. When it comes,
it's not my fault, Aaron. It's not my fault.
when it comes to vampire films, you're right. It's vampire is not the major theme of this. It's about these two races that have been feuding for many, many years, and they have their own internal struggles. But of course, our lead is a vampire, and she's part of this vampire coven that she found out that betrayed her and has been lying to her for many, many years. For me personally, I still put it in under that vampire / category because of the reasons why the vampire role-playing game gave us so much stuff. And obviously they borrowed from that very well. But I put it in probably in my top 5. Near Dark, of course, being my favorite, and Aaron and I just did that Couch Potato Theater as well. So if you're listening to this, go back and listen to that because that's already been released. But obviously, Lost Boys has its its spot somewhere in there as well. Interview with the Vampire as well, and
I think you got to throw. There's a couple I can think of, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, that's a debate. I don't really consider that a vampire film for me because that's like 2 different movies in one. You got the road part, and then you got the weird, vampire weird stuff going on after that. But
another one that I highly enjoy, I think it's highly underrated, James Woods' movie Vampires.
Yes, definitely, that is a good one. That is highly underrated, actually. But and then of course there is the Twilight films, which are still very popular with many, many people. Very popular book series as well. So it's definitely a genre that we enjoy. So yeah. Any other final thoughts, Kyle?
Maybe none I can say on this podcast.
Understood. Kate Beckinsale, Underworld.
No. Truthfully, a movie that I think is gotten more appreciation over time. I think a visually stunning movie, some incredible effects. I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's got, some issue. It has some of its own issues, and it is. But I think as a couch potato theater film, it defines everything that we try to do here at this podcast, and I think it's going to be something that you'll always revisit and enjoy it for what it is.
Agreed. Well said. Definitely. And outside of the fact that my movie wife is in this film, I love the world that they provided, and they gave it a rich history, gave it a prequel to even tell us more about it. And I'm curious to see what the television series brings us and stuff like that. So, yeah, Kyle, why are you on the phone again? Come on.
Kate, 10 o'clock dinner. Yeah.
Dude,
okay.
Dude.
I won't even say anything. But
Nice try.
Again, I'm loving it that you're coming to Tampa more often, Kate. That's all I'm saying. It's great. Okay. But yeah, I'll talk to you soon. I won't tell Kevin, I promise. He's not listening, I swear. Okay. Bye.
I see what you're doing. Not having it.
You're an engaged man, Mr. Reitzel, so
Anyway, Kyle,
you broke her heart.
Thank you for joining us here on the Fandom Podcast Network and Couch Potato Theater's special presentation of Underworld. I'd like to thank my former friend and former co-host and former co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kyle Wagner. Until next time, we will see you on the couch. Thank you and goodbye, everyone.